Hello, everyone. Woohoo! We are live and we are going to have so much fun tonight. So, as everyone is coming in, my name is Dr. Gina Lester. If you have not met me yet, I am really excited that you are here and that you're joining me for this amazing week. And I know that you're going to walk away with a lot of great information. I want to definitely make sure that all your questions are getting answered, that you are confident as you move forward, and that we just have a lot of fun along the way. So I want everybody to do a couple of things for me as everyone is coming in. I definitely would love for you to say hello. I see Renee here. I see Michelle here. I do see that Lana's watching, Linda's watching. So there is a link that Miss Debbie is my assistant. She is here in the chat. She is going to help help me stay on track and keep organized, and hopefully keep me from missing any of your amazing questions, and that I get those done. And I'm seeing a lot of hellos and highs. I see hi from Michelle and Georgette, Elena, Susan, Lana, Julie. But she's going to drop a code inside of the chat. And if you could just click on that and say, just give it permission, then I will be able to see your names, because right now it's popping up on my screen, but then I have to look over here to see everybody's names, and that'll make things a lot easier for me. So Susan, I see you. Hello. Tell us where you're from, and I'm excited to get to know you over the next 4 days. So just to let you know how this is going to go, for the next hour, I am going to be pouring into you. I'm going to talk tonight. We're going to kick off with what is sticking? What are all of these changes that you've heard going on in the college admission space? I'm sure we've all education world, everything has been turned upside down in the last year and a half, and we're just trying to figure out how to kind of come back out of that. And so in order to do that, we need to know what's going to stay around in the college admission space and what is not. And so hello, Tasso, I see you there. And I'm not sure if I have a Texas accent, and I'm not really good at pronouncing names, so I apologize up front if I pronounce your name wrong, but I will do my best. And so Bridget said she's happy to be here. Kathleen said howdy, Kathleen. Julie said hello. So we are definitely going to jump in tonight and talk about what is sticking, what is staying around, and what you need to know that has changed, and how to navigate those changes. And then we still have some things that are unknown, and we're going to talk about that. As we go through this week, each night, I'm going to dive into various aspects of the college admissions process. So if you're a parent and you have an 8th grader, a 9th grader, a 10th grader, you're going to take a ton of notes. 11th graders, you're going to be taking lots of notes, because all of these things are going to help your student get prepared and put them on a stronger path as they go through the college admissions process. People ask me all the time, when should my students start? And the reality is that in today's new environment, with all of the changes, all the things going on, our kids really need to start thinking about college, talking about college, and basically prepping for that as early as 8th and 9th grade. Then by the time your student is like a junior or heading into their senior year, they're going to be ahead of the game and ready to jump in and get applications done. Now, with that being said, I know that we have a lot of senior parents here, and you're like, okay, we're here, we're seniors, and we're in the middle of the process. So don't worry, you're going to walk away with a lot of great information, have a better understanding of the process, so that your child can get through this application season and stand out. So, I know that I think one of the biggest things I've seen over the summer, and most of the other industry specialists that I work with have all saw, and we've all talked about, is that this past summer, we all just needed a mental break. We all kind of just took off. We needed to be outside. We needed to be able to go see family. We needed to do normal things that we haven't been able to do in the last year and a half. And so I hope that your family's been able to do those things over the summer. But now, as we round the corner and our kids are back into school, it's time to really start thinking about college admissions in general. So let's get started, and we're going to begin crushing college admissions. And get my screen shared with you guys. Everybody should be able to see this. Let me give 1 second. Make sure that you all are able to see my screen share. There we go. Everybody can see it now. So again, today we're going to talk about what's sticking and what's not. So let's get started. And maybe we will. It's like my slides need to move. There we go. Okay, just was a little slow. So first of all, I want to introduce myself, because I know that some of you have been following me. Some of you have attended some of my challenges in the past. Some of you have been in the group for a little while. And then a large number of you are brand new. You're just now turning that corner. Your kids are just now in this process, and maybe you just now found me. So I wanted to just share a little bit about me, who I am, what I do, and just give you a little bit of background. So like I said, my name is Dr. Gina Lester. This picture up in the corner is my amazing husband, Jerry. Jerry and I are both widowers who were widowed at a younger age, and found love a second time. And so he is the support behind me and encourager, and I'm very, very thankful to have him in my life. Now, the two pictures with all the children, grandchildren in there are our children. So I always say we're the modern day Brady Bunch. So I have two daughters and a son with twin granddaughters. And then my husband has three sons and a grandson. And so between us, we now have six children, several daughter-in-laws, grandchildren. It's pretty amazing. I love being a Gigi. And so these three little ones that are in my lap there are the reason that I do what I do. Because not only do I love working with kids in general, I've helped my own children through this college admissions process, and I look forward to the day that I get to help my younger ones. And I have been in education for a long time. And so being able to help students and families navigate this process is really important to me. So I've definitely I've written a book. I have a lot of credentials. I've been interviewed on several news stations. I'm a member of several professional organizations. And I would say that when you're talking to any person, when you're listening to somebody talk about the college admissions process, it's really important to know that they have some accountability by being a member. And I'm also a board member for the NCAG board. And so that holds me accountable to a code of ethics. And so it's really important that you know the people that you're listening to are not only knowledgeable in the process, but that they're following backing, that they're not just out kind of on their own doing it, but that they really are held to a certain standards. I have an extensive education. I have a doctorate degree, and I have a double master's in education and psychology, and I marry those together in my process because I think it's really important, and it helps our students not only really understand themselves, their majors, but just be able to share who they are in the college admissions process, and it allows them to stand out in a way they wouldn't be able to stand out otherwise. And I have obviously 25 years of experience in education, higher education, and the college admissions process. So a little about my business. I have worked with well over 500 students. That's not only in my private practice, but I've also worked in public school, private schools, homeschooled students, you name it. I've kind of been in all of the different arenas. And like I said, in my private practice, I've worked with over 500 students in the last several years. My students always walk away with millions in scholarships as a whole. And I'm really proud of that because it's one thing, we want our kids to get into college and we want our kids to get into the dream college. But with the rising cost of college, to be able to walk away with those merit aid scholarships is a huge thing. And to be able to have a list that's going to allow them to be successful in that process is something that's very, very important to me. And the students I've worked with have gotten into over 1,500 plus colleges, everything from Ivy to just everything in between. So definitely have a vast knowledge of colleges on East Coast, West Coast, the mid mountain areas, Texas, the South, just all over the United States. And one of the things that's really important for me is that I am on campuses, really getting to know the counselors there, getting to know the school, knowing what's a good fit for my students. And these were just a small handful of my accepted academy students this year, and where some of them got accepted to and where they're going. And I'm super proud of them. We have several students in this picture that walked away with full rides to their universities. Others walked away with lots of scholarship money. And it is like blesses my heart because I see them all like decorating their dorms and moving in. And so it's really exciting for me to see them not just go through the process, but to be able to come out on the other side excited and happy and in their dream schools. Okay, so that's a little bit about me. So let's talk about what is sticking in college admissions 2022 and beyond, meaning the 21-22 school year and moving forward. So seniors through 8th graders, what is going to stick, what's going to be around, and what do you need to be aware of? The first thing is that I want to talk about why college admissions competitive. I get asked this question all the time. There are lots of schools out there. And there are schools that your student will be able to get accepted to. And different colleges have different acceptance rates, and there are some colleges that have lower acceptance rates. So I do want to dispel that, first of all, that with all of the thousands of colleges out there are colleges that your student will most likely be able to get into. But what we're seeing happen and where the shift is coming is that students are now applying to a lot of the same universities, the same flagship universities, the same, whether it's an Ivy, a state school, a lot of students want to be in those big state universities that have the football teams and so forth, or the sporting events. We have lots of students applying to small liberal arts colleges because they want that type of environment. And there is becoming a divide, I guess would be the best way to put that, within the college, within colleges in general, and especially coming out of 2020, in that our colleges, as crazy as it may seem and as expensive as it is for our kids to go, there are colleges that are financially struggling. And so when families are looking to make decisions about where is my student going to go, you don't want to end up at a school that ends up closing their doors and your student, you spend all this money on tuition and that school's not going to be around. Now, we have a lot of schools that are trying to bounce back and so forth. But the reason that when we talk about admissions being so competitive, it's the schools that 90% of our students are applying to. And it's not that we suddenly had this huge baby boom and thousands of families out there just suddenly had babies the same year you all had your children. But what we're seeing is that because it's more competitive, where maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I could apply to 5 or 6 schools, be good, know that maybe I had a couple of reaches, but there were some good schools in there and I would get into those. Now what we're seeing is that kids who literally have everything they need to be successful academically in a school are getting denied because there are too many kids applying. So the students in turn, in order to counterbalance that, are applying to more universities. So therefore it's making it a lot more competitive. And I do see questions coming up in the chat, so I will definitely try to hit those. And I saw Michelle ask, how do you know if a college is going under? The big thing I would say is that I would look at the school and you should be able to find their financial reports if you're concerned about that. All of that stuff is available to the public. I would also look at if they've got a 90% acceptance rate and they only have a 20% number of students that actually accept admissions, then you're going to want to look at that. Do they have like a lower, let's say they have 10,000 kids that apply and they give acceptance to 10,000 kids and only 1,000 show up, then they're financially going to be struggling in that respect. So you can look at that data, and it is available. You can go to their website, you can do Google searches, but all of their financials are available. So back to this. So that's why we're seeing the schools become more competitive. We also have more kids taking advantage of advanced classes. So AP, IB, dual credit, honors courses, those are all inflating our GPAs. They're all, when you see the difference between weighted and unweighted, our kids have really high GPAs. I see kids that go to competitive schools and they have a 4.2 and they're only in the top 50% of their class. And I mean, they're amazing students, but every student is taking so many of these AP classes. So what we've seen is we've gone from where, 5-10 years ago, I would say, oh, this school's a reach, meaning that, yeah, they have a low acceptance rate, but you're really academically strong. So we're going to go for this, but it is a reach, but we at least have an idea that you could possibly get accepted there. Now we have what I call wild cards, because when you have a 6% acceptance rate or a 13% acceptance rate, and all of a sudden your student is one of the 20 or 40 or 50,000 applications and they have all the same academics, then we're seeing very well-deserving, academically strong students not get accepted. And so that's, again, another piece that's making it more competitive. We also have more students who are who deferred decisions due to COVID. So a year ago, we had students that deferred. We're going to see that kind of going away, obviously, as we kind of go back in and our kids are back into campus, but that definitely affected this year's numbers. And there are still a few kids this year that decided to take a gap year or defer a year just to see how things were going to work. And then we have test optional. So, and this is, I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about tests. So don't worry, we will jump into this because we have schools that require tests. We have schools that are saying we're test optional. We just had the University of California system and the state come out saying that all schools were going to be test blind by, I think, 2025, I think is the year. But even this year, most of the schools are already test blind. So what does all that mean? And how, when you're no longer taking tests into consideration, or do I take a test? Do I not? How does all that come to play? That's all adding to the competitiveness of the school. So I want to give you some numbers, not to scare you, but just to kind of let you see how things have changed. So Harvard, we always talk about, an Ivy school. This is pretty easy. So in 2019, pre everything blowing up, basically, Harvard had over 42,000 students apply to their school. They accepted 1,652. So they had an admissions rate of 5%. So that was a pretty typical 5 to 8% would be a Harvard, a Princeton, all of those Ivy type schools, or Stanford, Rice, some of those other ones that are also in that same category. So the class of 2021, the ones that just graduated, let's look at some of the statistics for there. Duke announced that it received 5,000 early decision applications, and we'll talk about what all that means a little further into the week. But ED means that you signed a binding contract that you would actually go there if you were accepted, and you can only apply to one binding school. That was up 18%, because it's a big commitment to say, I'm going to go to this school regardless of finances, regardless of what they offer. I'm going to throw all my other schools out, and I'm only going to this one school. So to see that up 18% in 1 year was a pretty significant amount. Harvard received 10,086 early applications, up 57%. So that meant out of the 42,000 kids that applied the year before, only 5,000 applied early. Then we turned around and saw over 10,000. The University of Virginia, let's just look at a state university. They were up 38% in applications this year. In Georgia, which is a school that a lot of people love, and I have lots and lots of students apply to the University of Georgia, and their applications, they had 20,901 applications, and they were up 27%. So I want to just show you that this is from state universities to Ivy universities to private universities that are around. Okay, so now we're going to jump into, I just want to make sure I'm not missing any major comments. I don't think so. I will definitely answer questions. So if you have questions at the end, you can drop them in the chat and I'll be glad to answer those. So let's talk about test scores and how important are they? So what is the difference between test optional, test blind? So I want to explain that first. So test optional means that your student can choose whether or not they're going to send their test scores. And then I, as an admission officer, will look at your student, evaluate their application, and then if they send in their test scores, then I'm going to look at that, and that can add strength to their application. If they don't send in test scores, technically, I'm not going to hold that against them. And that's just not an added piece to their applications. And so there are definitely reasons that you would want to be test optional or not test optional. So depending on your student scores. But the reality is, by having a test score, that is going to increase your chances of strengthening your application, which can have an overall impact in the end. Now, test blind means that I'm going to say, regardless of who you are, you're not going to send in your test scores. You can have a 36 ACT, have a perfect score, and not send in the test score, and because I'm not going to look at it. So that's a big piece of the puzzle. Then people ask me, do I take ACT versus SAT? I will tell you, I prefer ACT, because ACT, your students, when they're going through test prep, even if they're not a math student, because I have a lot of people ask me that. I had a question that came through this week, and somebody asked about which test was better and that their student wasn't necessarily math. ACT does, a lot of students go, well, I'm not good at math, I don't want to take the ACT. But the ACT, when you're going through test prep, you have the ability to increase your score at a higher rate than you do on the SAT overall. And so definitely, I encourage you to go in, try out, have your student take a practice test. Most test prep companies will give you a practice test to see which one is their strength. That is my best advice, but I personally like the ACT. And I will tell you that this week I'm going to be giving away a test prep in a box as part of our grand prize. And I'll talk about that in a little bit later, but somebody will get a test prep program to go with all of the other stuff. So I'm super excited about that, and I will share that a little later as we go through. Then we want to talk about, test prep is in. So you definitely want to take the test. Even if they're test optional, I encourage you to take a test and try to get a score that you can send in. I mean, we looked at Georgia Tech, 37% of applicants, were accepted. So that's their acceptance rate, 37%. 21% of their students were admitted with test scores. And Georgia, like I said, now is definitely requiring test scores. So just know that they're not the only one. This is a pretty normal number to see. This number is the way the schools, the acceptances and the rates came out last year. So if you're a senior and you haven't gotten into those tests, there's one in September, there's one I think in October, November. Make sure that you're getting in and getting those taken. And then subject tests and essays are out. You do need to look to make sure that you don't need an essay score. The ACT is still allowing you to take an essay, but most 99% of the schools really are not looking at essays. It's not necessary. If you're a good writer, it can like add strength to your application. So if you take the ACT and want to take the essay and you're a good writer, it can help you. But otherwise, it's not necessary. And if your student took subject tests prior to them not being removed, then you can send those scores in this year if they're good. But going forward, there won't be subject tests. So that's just something to keep in mind. So they're going to be putting more weight on AP, IB, other type of courses that have testing and looking at those scores. Okay. So what does test optional mean? So this is something that's definitely sticking around. Test optional brings more essay writing. So I have a whole section tomorrow. We're going to talk about essays, and actually we're going to talk about it in 2 different segments because they're that important. So both tomorrow and I think Thursday, we're going to talk about essays. So just keep that in mind. But we had some new essay prompts come in out of the shift. So we have a new question that's just in the general essay prompts, and we now have a Covet essay. So your students, if they were affected by COVID in a specific way, they can talk about that. Otherwise, they don't have to do that one. But the whole thing that a lot of people don't understand is that your student doesn't just write one essay. And so, like I said, we'll talk about that more later. We are seeing more supplemental essays. So the personal statement is what we always think of as the main essay. But each school can require essays and short answers, and this can vary. I mean, the more competitive the school, the more essays that your student's going to have to write. So that's just an important thing to know. And each essay must stand on its own. So your student doesn't want to be writing the same thing in all of these 5 or 6 different essays. They need, or short answers. Each essay has to stand on its own, show your student in a new light, show what their values, what their interests, what makes them who they are in those essays. So, Michelle asked, what is considered a good score to get a full ride? So Michelle, the full ride scholarships are not based on test scores and GPA alone. Now, there are scholarships that are based on that, but when you get into the more competitive full ride scholarships, it's based on test scores, it's based on your academics overall, but it's also based on your essays, it's based on your activities, it's based on your interview. All of these schools will require interviews if you're going to be competing for those full ride scholarships. So it's all of those things together. And I mean, I would say that, obviously, if your student has a 24 or 23 on an essay on their ACT, they're not going to be in the running for necessarily a full ride if they're going to look at the scores. Now, you can look like at some on the Common App as our students are going through, there are some places that it'll say, I was just reading this, I think it was Auburn. I was looking at their application today, and it says you do not have to submit scores, but it says if you don't, you're not going to be considered for any scholarships. So that's something to keep in mind, that if your scores are low, they're going to be more difficult. But typically, if your student's in that 28, 29 and above range on an ACT, and, in that high 14s, really 1,500 and up, then they're going to be, in the running for potentially being considered. Now, like I said, they're going to be one of 50,000 applicants. So they have to get accepted, and then they determine if they're going to get scholarship. So hopefully that helps you out. So, and yes, Renee, it does. It depends on the individual college because every college is different. And so, like I said, there are scholarships that are based on your test scores and GPAs, but those are typically not full ride scholarships. Okay. So let's keep going. So financial impact, just so you know, the Pell Grant was recently increased. We're going to talk about all this. So there's an increase in tuition. Pell Grant was increased. We do have changes in the FAFSA coming down the road. And then there's a CSS profile that a lot of people just don't know about. So why are schools raising tuitions? First of all, they expect to see an increase. You can definitely expect to see an increase in the cost of tuition over the next few years. A big reason is what we have just come through. A lot of schools lost a lot of money by not having kids on campus. And like I said, I know it sounds crazy because we're thinking, well, okay, tuitions are already outrageous, all of these things. But the reason college costs so much is because many colleges are providing an experience along with your students' education. So they built new buildings. They have state-of-the-art football facility, and basketball and baseball and all of those things that your students want to go, and those sporting events that they want to attend. They have new theaters and, music departments and art area. They have new gymnasiums and various other things. There's lots of activities. They've increased they've done a lot of remodeling and really improved a lot of our dorms. I mean, there are definitely colleges that your student will go to, and they're going to be the typical dorm that we think of as parents that we were in. But many of these colleges now have, like apartment style, where either there's a room with 2 kids in each room and they're sharing bathrooms, or they're, like a pod where they have a common area with 4 rooms around it and bathrooms. So all of those things have cost a rise in college tuition, plus, renovating classrooms, bringing in new technology. And with the, all of the online education and everything that went on, colleges had to send their, staff home remotely. They still had to pay those staff. They had dorms that were sitting empty that they typically would get paid for that they didn't. So all of that cut into their budgets, and that therefore, when they're looking at, okay, so we have now 60,000 kids applying that we're going to pick 1,500 from, they're in a position that they can raise tuition. It's just unfortunate, and it's basically kind of where we're at with it, but it is something just to know as you move forward. So Renee said, yeah, there are a couple of colleges that have dropped tuition for undergraduates. And so there are some of those out there, but you just need to make sure that you know what those schools are, what their reasoning behind that is, and just making sure that it fits with you. And there are schools, I will tell you, there are schools, even with raising tuition, there are schools that give good merit aid. There's schools that give great out of state aid. I visited the University of Wyoming just a month ago, and one of the things that they do is they really want to make sure that they're giving out of state families money. And so that's an important thing to know, is that, okay, if my child wants to be in Wyoming and we're out of state, then they have a high percentage of out-of-state students that they give pretty decent scholarships to, and that's a state university. So there are lots of schools out there that are giving money. I just want you to be aware that depending on if you're applying to flagship schools, if you're applying to certain ones, that you're going to see some of those schools are going to increase tuition, and just to be aware of that and to have those conversations ahead of time. Again, FAFSA, this is just the statistics of it. Some of you may or may not qualify, but they did increase it, and they are still talking about increasing it more. Hopefully that will happen for our lower income families that are looking for their students to go to college. And again, like I said, there are lots of smaller schools out there that the tuition won't be as high. So it depends on what kind of environment, what you're looking for in that process. Okay. Again, Congress has recently passed some legislation that's supposed to simplify the FAFSA, making it 2 pages. Now, this was supposed to originally be released with this upcoming school year. They have put that on hold. So that is not happening right now. So it's back in Congress, which is good because there were some things that weren't great about it, that were going to really hurt our middle income families. And so they have gone back and they're reworking it. And so hopefully when they come back, we're going to see this in a better situation. It does need to be simplified, but it needs to be something that's going to, help our families and not be a detriment to them. So, so let's talk about the CSS profile. So the CSS profile, if your student is applying to to private universities, there are many of those that are going to ask you to fill out the CSS profile. And the CSS profile is a great place for you to go to fill this out because it's going to open a door for you to get some additional financial aid. Basically, we know that private colleges cost typically double sometimes of private colleges. But what I will tell you is, public colleges, but what I'll tell you is that there are many, many, many schools out there and many universities that private universities that give huge scholarships. And so I have lots of students that will walk away with lots of scholarship money from the CSS profile, from scholarship money, all of those things. So don't look at that and think immediately, oh, I'm not going to be able to afford that school. You have to research. There are some that don't give as large of scholarships out there, but a big majority of private schools give a lot of financial aid, and definitely more than our state schools. So definitely, if your student's thinking about that, you want to do some research, you want to find out, kind of dig into that, because there are definitely great opportunities for you to be able to get that extra scholarship money and so forth. So that's a big thing too. Okay. Now let's talk about the COVID's impact on college campuses. So online versus in person. This year, our students are all, fortunately, the colleges are opening the doors. Our kids are going back at this point. That's a great thing, and I'm very happy about it. Some kids will be required to wear masks. Some aren't. It's a state-by-state situation, so you need to look at the school guidelines. There are some schools that are going to require vaccines, some that aren't. So you just need to go in and make sure that whatever your viewpoints are, that the schools that your students are applying to, that you align with that. And every one of our colleges have like a tab that says something along the lines of, COVID guidelines, those type of things. So you want to click on that, check that, and make sure that that you just know what those guidelines are. Now, we are going to still see some online classes. The one thing that colleges were able to do was to add additional online classes. And we've always had some online, our students have been doing online classes. That's been an option for a while, but now those classes are already set up. So some students may be doing a hybrid. They may be they're living on campus. They're going to mostly in-person classes, but they could be also taking some classes that are online as well. And that's kind of just, an option that students have, and it gives them that ability to have more students or provide more tracks for a particular course that's really popular. So that's something that's going on. Campus visits are still hit and miss. We have a lot of campuses that are open. I was able to go up in Colorado, Wyoming, that area. Every campus was open. They let me come on. They met with me. There was not any restrictions. I was able to go through all the buildings. So there are definitely campuses that are open, and then there are campuses that are more restricted or based on state guidelines. So you definitely want to check. But the one good thing is that our schools all have online options still. So what I encourage you, especially if you're younger, is to go in and use those online options. Go to an information center, do that campus tour online, and then decide, okay, do I like this enough that it's worth taking and spending the money and the time to go to that campus? So I think in some respects, this is coming out of this, we have more opportunities for our kids to really see and understand and research schools prior to just jumping in and saying, okay, I'm going to apply to this university without knowing. And especially if it's difficult to travel or time or whatever that might look like. So those are all things that you want to just keep in mind, to look at that campus and make sure that you align with whatever the guidelines are for that particular school. Because like I said, they're going to be a little different for every school moving forward. And you just want to make sure you know what those are before you do. So that's a lot of information. And tonight, like I said, was just me giving you guys the general basic overview of what's going on. We're going to be diving into essays. We're going to dive into test, to more about tests. We're going to talk about Uniquely You, which is something that I am passionate about, because one of the biggest ways that your student is going to stand out in the college admissions process is by knowing themselves, understanding who they are, and being able to tell their stories in their applications. And not only does that help your student in the application process as far as acceptance, but it's definitely going to help them when it comes to scholarship. So if you have any questions about some of the things that we've talked about tonight, I definitely want you to drop those into the comments. I'm going to give us a few minutes here, and I want to end tonight, making sure that I've answered any questions about the overall process and questions that you might have as we move forward. And like I said, we're going to go very deep over the next 4 days, but I wanted to kind of explain where we're at in this process and make sure that you guys are good to go. So I'm looking to see if we have any other questions. I think I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a minute so I can come back on and see your amazing, beautiful faces there. So let me see. Do we have any other questions that I have missed that anybody wants to do? Where do you find the CSS profile? That's a great question, Elena. And so you're going to find that on the College Board website. So that's where you're going to find the CSS profile. And it will give you a list of all the colleges that use it there as well. So that is definitely something you want to keep in mind. Do you have experience with private Christian colleges? Yes, Michelle. I definitely have a lot of families that students who go to the smaller private Christian colleges. That's what they're looking for all over the U.S. So I can definitely talk about that. If there's something specific that you're wanting to know about that, I would be glad to answer those questions for you. I will tell you, there are a lot of smaller universities that are amazing. And I think sometimes they are very overlooked. And I do feel like that while it's really great for our students to be able to go out and apply to some of these big universities or to get those wild cards on their list, there are some jewels in some of our smaller universities. And so I love to help uncover those hidden jewels that are perfect for your students. So Claire asked, how early can we start the CSS profile? So both the FAFSA and the CSS profile, you will actually fill out in October of your student's senior year. So you can go in and you can look at it. There are what we call EFC calculators. If you're working with me, then your student gets access to those as well, but they're free and they're anywhere. You can go on every single website, the school's website, and it'll tell you that. And if they're using the CSS profile, they usually include that kind of in their EFC calculator. So I was looking at other questions. Do we have it? Yep. So I think I've answered most of those. If there's anybody else that has any specific questions, I would be more than happy to answer those. We are going to do a drawing. So I want to share while I'm giving you a moment to think through your questions. I know it's a lot. And I know that there's a lot of mixed feelings, and parents are trying to figure out and balance between the cost of college, getting our kids into a really strong academic school, making sure they get a great education, giving them that experience, all of those things together. And so, that's an important thing for you to do. And so when we're going through this, I want you to think about all the different pieces, because building out that college list is huge. And if you're a senior and you've already got that list kind of built, that's great. But there may be some schools that you want to add or take off as you move forward. And somebody asked about a scholarship website list. You can pretty much Google scholarships websites out there. If you go to my website, I do have a toolkit that you can download. That's a scholarship toolkit. It's just, all it is a list of all of the hundreds of different websites that are out there for scholarships. But I will tell you, there are lots of great private scholarships. And I never discourage students from going out and applying to those private scholarships. But you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck by focusing on those academic scholarships that come with each university, because that's why you want to apply as a freshman. That's where you're going to get the biggest amount of money for sure. So, does taking dual enrollment classes help stand out when applying to colleges? Yes, Vanessa, it does. It depends on the school. There are some schools that are still going to consider AP and IB as stronger courses than dual credit. But, when they see students that are taking dual credit, they do know that that is an advanced class. And so therefore, they are going to look at that as well. Christine asked if divorced parents who fills out the FAFSA, there's a lot that goes into that, Christina. Typically, it's the parent that has the main custody of the student. It also means, just so you know, that if you're divorced, and if I were filling it out and I was divorced and I'm the primary person, that my child stays with me and I have main custody, or sometimes it's 50-50. So then that can be a little bit different, and you would definitely want to talk to a financial planner about those things. But if you're remarried, your new spouse also has to include their information on those file forms. So it's very complicated, and it is a pretty big piece. So what you've got to decide is which parent is considered primary custody, and that's the simple answer. There's a lot more involved in that, and it's difficult for me to get into that because it depends on your situation, and every situation is a little different. So cool. All right. So as we go forward, I want you guys to be engaged. I want to get to know you. I want to know about your students. I want to know about you. I want to know how I can help you. And so in order to do that, I bring in a little bit of gamification so that we can have some fun. You can win some prizes, and I can get to know you and just be able to help you in a better way. So inside of our Facebook group, now, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're on YouTube and you're not in the Facebook group, then you can email me. You can reply to the emails that you get every day with this information, and I'll include you on the wheel, because I want everybody to win, regardless of which platform you're watching. So if you're on the Facebook group, though, I definitely want you to go in and tell me, like, what grade your student. I mean, we've kind of done this, but I want you to go in and just tell me, like, maybe your biggest concern about the college admissions process, what your oldest student's grade is, and what grade your kids are, either way, and what your biggest concern about college is. And Miss Debbie will have a post in our Facebook group that you can go in and post under that. When you do that, you get your name on our wheel and you get an extra chance to win a prize. And our prizes are everything from, I do give away my book. So for some of you guys, you're going to win my book. I'm going to give away a couple of books tonight, but I also will be giving away some other things. So I give away a portfolio program for somebody this week that gets to do a portfolio. And on Thursday night, you're going to want to absolutely be here because I do a drawing for one person to get a year inside of my Purposeful Parent membership, which is 1 year of monthly meetings, walking alongside of me, getting your questions answered. And I go in and give you all the nuances and the special things and the things that you're just not hearing outside in other places. So that's our grand prize, is that somebody's going to win access to Purposeful Parent. I'm also going to be giving away a test prep in a box, which is going to be another amazing prize that somebody will get a chance to win. So you want to participate, you want to be part of the experience. So tonight, I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to give me 1 second. I am going to pull up my wheel of names. And so you have a good chance tonight because only a small percentage of you actually went in and introduced yourselves in the comments. So if you haven't done that, you can still go back and do that and get entered. Or like I said, you can send it to me in an email. If you're not in Facebook and you're watching on YouTube, feel free to do that. But also make sure you post or you send me an email for tonight's homework. Okay. So I'm going to show our wheel. It's right here. We go. And I'm going to give away a book tonight. So we're going to give away one book to one lucky winner. It is Christine. I know I'm not going to pronounce your last name, Christine. And so Miss Debbie, if you can write her name down. And Debbie Philbin said, I have twins going into 11th grade. Fun year ahead of us. Yes, Debbie, you do have a fun year. Junior year is the most important. And we're going to talk about that this week. And I know you've been following me for a while, so you've heard me talk about how important junior year is. So that's going to be great. Glenda said, thank you. So is Christina in the house? So if you're here, Christina, would you say hello? And I'm getting lots of thank you for the information, that type of thing. So, but I definitely would love to, if Christina is in the house, I would love to have her say hello. Otherwise, I will reach out to her to make sure she gets a book. But we're going to give away lots of additional books. We're going to give away a test prep. I'm going to give away an opportunity to have a portfolio system that you can use to help your students stand out in the process. And then our grand prize. So it's just fun to give away. It just brings in a little bit of fun to the event. So Lana says, thank you. Kathleen says, so helpful. Thank you. You're welcome, guys. Like I said, this is the tip of the iceberg. This is kind of the, I don't want to overwhelm you night because as we go in tomorrow, we're going to talk about we're going to go into not really what a holistic review is, but we're going to talk about specifically the essay, what the colleges are looking for in the application and what you need to make sure that you're using and standing out. So thank you guys. This is great information. I look forward to you. Also, if you're watching and you purchase the VIP, so after I end here in a few minutes, I want you guys to jump on to the Zoom link that was in the email. I will have Ms. Debbie also put a link into the Facebook group. If you didn't do that and you want to join the VIP, it was a small fee, but you can come into the Zoom room after our meetings and I will talk about your specific situations or try to help you as much as I can. And I try to keep that a smaller group so that I can really dive in and help whoever needs that help inside that group. So you're welcome to everybody. I'm glad you have lots of great information. I can't wait until tomorrow night. If you have questions, drop them in the Facebook. Do your homework. If you want to join the VIP, great. And I look forward to helping you on this journey. You guys have been amazing. And I think that we are good to go tonight. I was just looking really quickly. I didn't see our winner in here tonight. So hopefully she'll be here tomorrow night, but I'll reach out to her for sure. So you guys have a great evening, and I will see you all tomorrow night, same time. So, what was the homework? The homework was to go in and share your biggest concern in the college admissions process. What's the biggest concern for you, and like what grade your kids are in. And Miss Debbie will put a post in the Facebook group. And if you're on YouTube, then make sure you just email me that information. Okay. So sounds good. And do you have to be an adult parent to leave a comment? No. If you're a teen and you're watching this, I am very excited that you're here, and you're more than welcome to ask your questions and those type of things. And where you're sharing the information inside the Facebook group. Like I said, Miss Debbie will put a post that says homework day 1, and you'll put you'll answer under the post, and that'll make it easy for me to keep up with all of those things. Okay, sounds good. Perfect. Okay. I hope you guys have a great evening, and I will see you all tomorrow. So bye for now.